Thank you so much for joining us on this week's Good News. I'm here with Kristin Trivett. She is with the Isaiah 117 House, which honestly I absolutely love this ministry. I've been involved in helping them for since the beginning, actually. And she has some really good news to share with us today. So, Kristin, can you tell me when did you first get involved or hear about the Isaiah 117 House?
I've been with it since the beginning. So I didn't know what this would look like, right? So we never even could have imagined the Isaiah 117 house becoming what it is. God knew. Yeah. We just didn't. So when I got involved in the Isaiah 117 house was with our founder, with Rhonda Paulson, and in the very beginning of the what if there was a house, and just being able to be a part of seeing Carter County become what it is. So I don't know when I became involved before it was what it is. And it has been the greatest joy to see that now, yes, I'm in Washington County is the county that I serve with, and to see that every child is being impacted by the what if.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So I know a lot about the Isaiah 117 house, but someone listening or watching today, maybe this is their first time hearing about the Isaiah 117 house. Can you explain a little bit on just what you do, what the Isaiah house is there for, and what really good things it provides for the community?
Yeah. So we think of a child being removed to be placed into foster care. I really think, and I thought this way too before I lived it, you think of it as a good day, right? You think that child is going somewhere safe. But what we have seen over and over and over again is that is child's worst day. So we picture this child is being removed and you're going to a home and somebody's going to love you and take care of you. What this child has experienced is on their worst day, they're being taken away from their mama, their dad. And we know that might not be the best place for that child, but that child doesn't care. She doesn't care. That is their mama. They're being taken out. That's their home. And they're being put somewhere with someone that they don't know, and they have had no say in it. It is a traumatic day. And then, typically, they're taken to the Department of Children's Services where they sit in a cubicle, in a conference room, with other people working around them, with just what they own in a black trash bag. And so our mission at the Isaiah 117 house is to take that child on their worst day and to tell them that this is not their fault, that they've done nothing wrong, and that they are loved and that they are worthy. And we want them to rest. We want them to be heard. And we want them to have a voice in this day. And so we are able to serve them. We have volunteers that meet these children during this transitional period. They're typically with us about 6 to 8 hours. Sometimes 6 to 8 hours, sometimes days, that they are waiting for that foster care placement. And so we have volunteers that meet them there and serve them. They give them a meal. We give them hot baths. We pack them bags for 3 to 4 days so that when they do go to a foster family, they feel comfortable with their belongings. We serve the caseworker. We say caseworkers have a very hard job and oftentimes are being made into the villain when we know that they love these children and that things are just being put on them and no one's helping take that burden off. And so that is part of our mission, is that we serve that caseworker. They need a hot cup of coffee. They need a quiet place to go so that they can make those calls. Can you take a child? Can you take this child? So that the child isn't hearing it. Because as a child, you do not want to hear that someone doesn't want you. And even though we often know that's not the case, how would that feel? And so we give that caseworker that space to be able to get their work done and not have to do the double time of taking care of a child. And we also serve the foster family. So as a foster parent, you get a call in the night and they say, hey, we have a sibling group of 3. They all have lice. They have no belongings. Can you take them? It's impossible. The foster parents are taking on so much. And so what we get to do is make that call so much easier. We get to say, hey, we have a sibling group of 3. They've all been treated for lice. They have 3 to 4 days worth of stuff. Do you need a bed? We have a bed. Do you need a car seat? We have that too. And we allow that foster family to come and be part of their healing, to come into this child's space, because the Isaiah 117 house becomes that child's space. And so we allow them to come in and say, hey, today we wanted to bring you home. And can I show you pictures of where we're going? And so this child has a voice. This child is heard, and they can feel safe about what this next step looks like.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And I definitely know the impact as far as with caseworkers too. I mean, you know this, my wife's an amazing caseworker. But she's told me how amazing it is to go to the Isaiah house and to not have to, worry about the child as much. That, they're not having to, she knows the effect that removing a kid has on the kid, but she also knows the effect that it has on her, because it's not easy taking a kid from their home and trying to find them another home that where some family will love them and care for them. But when she can pull up to the Isaiah house and know, okay, I can do my best to try to find them a home. I can do my best to try to make sure that they're taken care of. And I know that the volunteers at the Isaiah house are going to love this kid. They're going to make sure that everything is taken care of, and I can focus on trying to find them the home that they're going to be loved at. And that's amazing. So I do want to say thank you for doing that, for your Isaiah house specifically, as well as a couple others that she's been to. Now, with the Isaiah 117 house, you've kind of touched on the impact that it has with the kids. And I know you have probably about 30 hours at least worth of stories you could tell. Yes. But I would love to know maybe some most recent ones of just some personal stories of where these kids' lives have been impacted, where you have seen, on the most traumatic day of their life, where you have seen that glimmer of hope. This is all about good news, is what we want to share. And I've heard some stories of some really good things that comes out of this, though it is a difficult scenario, a difficult situation that these kids are in. Where have you seen hope during this?
I'll save my favorite story for last. But more recently, let's say, we had a sibling group come to the house. And when a sibling group comes in, we get them fed, and then we say, do you want to take a hot shower? Especially when they're older. This one little boy said, he said, this is the nicest shower I've ever seen. It's just a standard shower. And it's the nicest shower. And he said, could I take a bath? Yes. I said, do you want bubbles? And he was like, yes. And this is the best day ever. This day that when he came in, his shoulders were down and he was scared. And instead of him sitting on a floor in a conference room, instead of him trying to find something to do with his siblings sitting in a cube, he had a bubble bath. And a bubble bath changed his day, his most traumatic day. He said, this is the best day ever. We don't see that. We had a child come to the house, and it had been a hard day for the caseworkers. And it was 9:00 at night, and a caseworker who had already finished their day came to the house. We had been there several hours by that point. And when the caseworker walked in, he said, I just needed to come here to sit. I needed to come be still, and I needed to know this child was okay today. He said today was a really hard day. That's the impact of the Isaiah House. Is that a caseworker, when they are not working, they are off, they are done, they choose to come to the house for healing, to know that this child's okay, and that they could process their day and do what they needed so that they could go back to the next day to be the best caseworker they could be. My favorite story is ours. My favorite story is 2 days before Christmas. We got a call that a 17-year-old was on the way to the house. And I was just telling someone this yesterday. As I said, I don't know if it was the way the caseworker said what she had said on the phone, or if it was because it's 2 days before Christmas and you feel like everyone should have family at Christmas. But when she said, this one is different, I knew in my soul that I wanted to bring her home. I have an incredible husband, and I called and said, I think I need to bring a 17-year-old home. And he said, well, I guess I'll pick up pizza for dinner. When I got to the house, I drove around back, and when I looked up, she was slunched over a railing. And she was on the phone, and she was begging whoever it was on the other line. She said, it's just for 7 months. I promise I'm no trouble. I won't eat your food. And in that moment, it's that mama part of you. No child should ever have to beg someone to take them and to give them a home. And I walked into the caseworker's office and I said, please just make it stop. And this thought goes through your mind that it's 2 days before Christmas. How in the world could I bring a 17-year-old home when I have a 9-year-old and a 2-year-old at home? How can you do that? And it's possible because the Isaiah 117 house. Because 2 days for Christmas, my 17-year-old, we needed a bed. A bed was provided. She needed new clothes. We had new clothes everywhere. On Christmas Eve, our founder is out shopping so that my 17-year-old can have presents under the Christmas tree. Nothing about Christmas changed because of the Isaiah 117 house. Like, that's the impact. I met my child there. It is changing the way foster care begins. And it's changing the stories. It's not just our story that looks like that. It's everybody's story that gets to experience what it looks like coming into foster care. One day I have dreams of being able to hear stories of these children who grow up and they remember that day. Like, what are they going to be able to say? What is this day? Because they're not going to remember our names. They're not going to remember. But what I pray is that they remember how it felt. There was that day, and it was really terrible, and I was taken away from my mom. But I went somewhere. I went to this house, this white house with a red door, and somebody was there. Somebody took care of me until I was able to go to my foster care placement. I have dreams of what that will look like because I think it's changing. It's going to change the world. I have no doubt.
Yeah. Wow. Gather myself for a second. Killing me here. Wow. Yeah. Give our listeners a break too, because they're probably crying in their cars right now. Wow. That's so powerful. To be able to experience it firsthand and see, because we've always known of, foster cares. I mean, before the Isaiah house, honestly, I knew, that there was foster parents and kids were removed because of issues. But after the Isaiah house, and they've just really shown a lot of awareness of what these children, some of them are, like you said, 17. Some of them are, 5 months old, 1 month old, 6 years old. And trying to imagine the difficulty that they go through, trying to imagine what it would feel like for you to be taken from your parents. I mean, as a parent myself, and I know you are as well, I could not imagine my child going through that. And it's to know that other kids are, it hurts. It hurts a lot.
They don't deserve it.
No, they don't. They've done nothing wrong. And I know that's a big thing that you guys say is these kids have done nothing wrong. And they need to know that they've done nothing wrong because they might think they have. The questions that they could be running through their heads, like, what did I do for my...
Well, it's so interesting. Yeah, because how could you not feel like this is your fault? Because you're the one being taken out of this. Mom gets to stay. You're having to leave your home. You're having to leave because that is your home. We know that it's not the safest at that point. We know that it's not the best place for you to be. But they don't care. They don't know that. That's their home. That's their mama. But that's then our joy, is that we get to say, you've done nothing wrong. And we are sorry. We are so sorry that this day had to happen. We adopted our son through foster care almost 2.5 years ago. We got the call that he was going to be coming home with us. My son is almost 10, and he is able to tell you about his worst day. I didn't have the Isaiah 117 house. So when you ask my son about his worst day, he will say, that's the day my mama came to get me. And I say, what a joy that other children aren't going to have to say that, because they've had an experience where their foster parents got to become part of the healing. I was part of the trauma from my son, and he didn't deserve that. He deserved to have me come and be part of that first breath of healing. He deserved to have the space to go to the Isaiah 117 house and feel whatever you want. You want to come in angry, you want to come in sad, you want to come in happy, confused. We'll take it. We're here for it. It's okay. Everything is fair game at the Isaiah 117 house. And what I wish that my son would have had that he would have had that space. And, we just pray that God continues that healing for every one of these children so that they can find peace.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you've taken on that responsibility, that so many of some people just like you have came upon and came aboard the Isaiah 117 house and are really on this goal and this mission to change that day, change the most traumatic day, and change it from being the most traumatic day to maybe being, like you said, part of the good, part of the, that kind of sucked being removed, but wow, that house was awesome. That shower and that bubble bath, man, that was awesome. And
it was just healing.
Yeah.
I was heard that day. I was allowed to be angry that day. I was allowed to be sad. I was allowed to just cry with that volunteer. And our volunteers, out of this world, for these people to say, hey, we have a 6-year-old on the way to the house. Can you please come love him? He is really sad. And for that volunteer to come in to just be whatever they need them to be.
That's awesome. So now for everyone listening right now, how can maybe they're listening and they're like me and tearing up, and maybe they had to pull over. How can they get involved with the Isaiah House? Maybe whether that's volunteering, being one of the volunteers, or financial partner, or, just praying for the Isaiah House. What are some ways that they can do that?
The first thing we love is to tell people to set a timer on your phone for 117. Every day at 1:17 to stop and pray for this ministry. Pray for that child coming in. Pray for that caseworker that is going to walk through that door. Pray for that foster family who's preparing their hearts to just say yes. We would love to know that our community is praying. And the second thing, follow us on social media so that you can know about upcoming events that you can be a part of. You can message us there about volunteering. As COVID changed a few things about how that works, but there will be upcoming volunteer trainings. So if you want to be part of that, we would love to hear from you so that we can get you involved that way. Financially, we are only financially supported by our community. You can become a sock buddy. You get a really cool pair of socks when you become a sock buddy at $25 a month. It typically takes $300 per child that walks through the door to get them everything that they need and deserve. And so if you become a sock buddy, $25 a month turns out to be $300 in that year. And so you, by doing that, are supporting a child that walks through, and you are making the difference, and you are changing the way that foster care begins for that child. We're always looking for people who wear a shirt of ours, get a shirt to say, and somebody says, oh, what is the Isaiah 117 house? Well, did you know? Yeah. And they'll say, no. It's just an easy way to bring up the conversation, be having these conversations, because our kids deserve to be heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming out here and talking and sharing your heart and sharing these stories. I know I'm tearing up a little bit. It's our listeners and viewers are definitely probably tearing up as well, which not just tearing up, but they feel that impact. They feel the power that the Isaiah 117 house is a part of right now, and defending the cause of the fatherless, which is the whole Isaiah house is defending the cause of the fatherless, which is amazing. So thank you for that. So if you want to get involved, I'll link to some of their social media accounts on our YouTube, in the YouTube description. So if you're listening right now, head over to our YouTube channel. It's just WCQR FM, and then click on the Isaiah 117 House of Good News, and the links will be there, so you can go ahead and follow along with them on social media and learn about the sock buddies and everything. So thank you again so much.